the final, I just wanted to hit record first there, the final event of this Love Tutoring Festival. It's been a pretty stunning 5 days. It's been a long journey since we first kind of started putting this together. We've seen some wonderful new faces at this festival, and also some old faces coming back and supporting us, and hopefully learning and having their voice heard, which is what this festival is all about. Today's event is round two, Fig 2 of the International Tutoring Roundtable we held at the first festival, also chaired by Alex and with some Adolfo Yahi joining us from the first festival as well. So we've added some wonderful new panelists, and in just a second I'll hand over to Alex to go around the room and offer up introductions so that each one of the panelists can introduce themselves and let us know, give us some context to their tutoring background to kind of contextualize everything. But this is one of the best attended and kind of most high value events at the first festival, and it returns this January to hopefully bring us an incredibly wide-ranging and diverse conversation around the challenges that we will face in tutoring in 2022, but crucially how leaders globally around the world are hoping to combat and thrive off them. So thank you once again to Alex Asher, the CEO of LearnCube, general partners of this festival, for chairing this event once again. And we're bringing in tutors and tutoring leaders from and with experience in Guatemala, India. Unfortunately, Manish can't join us today, but Russia, Dubai, and further afield. So a truly global event to bring the curtain down on our theme of world tutoring, today's theme, and to set us off into 2022 with a new and reinvigorated mindset towards the possibilities of tutoring this coming year. A final and huge thank you to Nudge Education, the lead sponsors of this wonderful 5-day online festival, and also to Tutorbird, the sponsors of Day 5. A really handy and kind of well set up all-in-one tutor management software. So you can go and find out more about Tutorbird at tutorbird.com. But for the final time this festival, I will be handing over to a speaker, to a panel, to a chair, and that chair today is Alex Asher. So Alex, over to you.
Thanks very much, Ludo. And we have a cracking panel here. I'm going to start with introducing the panel first before we introduce the topic and the name of the game today. But it is really going to be talking about what's the future, particularly at least this year, of tutoring and tutoring internationally. We've got a great international crew here. So I'm going to go around, at least in my view, and I'll kind of introduce each, but I'll really let them say a little bit more about their own experience. There's a real great diversity in our panel, and we'll start off with Adolfo. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your business, and I think that'll give people a bit of an idea of your experience.
Morning, everybody. I'm Adolfo Yarhi. I'm from Guatemala. I have a tutoring company in Guatemala. It's called Numbers. We've been in the business for over 12 years, have served about over 40,000 people. We focus on math tutoring, and until the pandemic, we were fully on site. Now we are fully online. We decided to give away our on-site tutoring, and that has allowed us to expand to other countries in Central America, and now we are attending children in Honduras and Nicaragua as well. And recently we founded the Math Academy Online, which is another tutoring company, basically geared towards US students, trying to help them with get up to speed with math, especially after these past 2 years of on and off on-site schooling. So this is what we do.
Great. Thanks for that, Adolfo. And Julia.
Hi, so my name is Julia. I have been living in London for the last 18 years, came from Ukraine, and I finished university here. So I came as a student initially and worked as a primary school teacher for a while. And while working as a primary school teacher, I was like, it was my natural interest in English as additional language and how to support children. And then that grew into being a coordinator for children who don't speak English as a first language. And very organically, it grew into consultations and helping Russian-speaking families settling in the UK. By the result of which I have co-founded a company called Educat Consulting, and we mainly work with Russian-speaking and international families from all over the world. At the beginning, the majority were already in the UK, needed help with 11 plus move or universities, and now I think it's probably 50-50 in terms of the ones supporting here in the UK or the ones still abroad, relocated and looking for boarding school. And again, very organically, as part of the consultations for schools and universities, people were asking us to, obviously, it just felt very natural to take charge of preparing the academic side as well. So we started off with a few tutors that we had to test on our children and loyal clients. And we have very small tutoring. Well, our department is quite small, tutoring department, and it's very focused on entry exams and maybe filling in gaps of in knowledge for end of year results or A-levels, GCSEs, etc. And now we are kind of moving towards universities and some aptitude tests preparation.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So definitely we're going to have experience from Adolfo in math and tutoring. We're going to have experience in tutoring for, it sounds like more like school and university entrance with Julia. Kirill, tell us about you.
Thank you. I'm running an early stage ed tech startup, okay. And we're building some tutoring automation. So we take various functions of human tutors and replace them with machines bit by bit. So we take content, for example. Content is easy. Then we add infinite question banks, which is pain in the neck because they are very hard to build. Nobody has built yet, but us. Then we take machine learning based real-time adaptability to the personal style of learning, to the personal pattern. If you can't do this, do that, but based on the data-driven. And then we take some other functions, like, for example, image. Like, for example, your image it seems like 3D, but it's on the screen on 2D. So we could do the same thing. And someone just with your face will be talking and in no time, because some pupils they still prefer human face on the screen rather than some sort of faceless formulae.
Yeah.
So that's basically what we do. So we are an early
stage
startup. Thank you.
And it sounds like it's good to have some mix up in the panel, also in the technology space. So I'm looking forward to hearing more from you, Kirill. And Sid, how are you, my friend? Tell us all about you if people don't know you.
I'm good. Great to be back again. Third time on the Love Tutoring this week, so it's great. Yeah. So I have been in the education sector for over 11 years. I ran Femtinos just before COVID, and we worked with 10,000 kids in the UK. And then I've set up UK virtual schools since COVID started. So it's just over 18 months now. And we are an online school and we support homeschooling families, mainly in the UK, but it's also picked up organically from around the globe as well. So I think we've got kids from 4 continents at the moment. And it's grown really quickly. In the first 5 months, we grew to a team of 18. We're now to a team of 24. We're adding, thank you. We're adding new subjects and new things all the time. And so I've been a teacher myself. So I've taken what works in a schooling environment and then what doesn't work. So we don't do any testing, assessments, no marking of homework. We take a very different, maybe radical approach to teaching, and it works. And the kids are happy, they love learning, and we have a great team. So that's what I do. We work a lot with kids who have anxiety, SEN issues, They were bullied at school, so it's difficult for them to transition or go back to a school environment. So there's lots of flexible approaches that we have to teaching, from live classes to more webinar style to video learning only. So it's basically like a menu that they can pick and choose what they want to do. So that's what I do.
Brilliant, Sid. Thanks so much for that.
Thank you.
And we're on to our final panelist. Emma, tell us about you.
What a superb lineup. Very thrilling to come after everyone. So really enjoyed learning everyone's backgrounds. I'm really delighted to be here. This is my first time at the festival and first time this week. So Sid, I've got some catching up to do, definitely. So my name's Emma Paulsport. I'm a learning science practitioner, and I'm also founder of Delecti, which is an education consultancy based in Bradford-on-Avon, a little market town a stone's throw from the gorgeous sort of heights of Bath that you might have seen if you binge watched Bridgerton about 14 months ago. So what's my work based on? I've been in the education sector for about 12 years now. My background is in secondary and tertiary education, and also in enrichment work, however we might look at that. I'm now very focused on critical literacy, by which I mean understanding how we learn, so that metacognitive awareness. And I'm also really focused on bridging gaps, connecting up what happens in curricula with what happens outside of the classroom once we reach the real world. And that real empowerment piece really for both teachers and learners in that bridging work. So how does that carve up? I have some students that I coach myself to help those transition periods, particularly up from 16 to 18 education into further education or higher education or into postgraduate education. I've also latterly been working on CPD courses with a really exciting relationship with the Commonwealth of Learning based over in Vancouver and with an outpost in Malta. So my international sort of outlook, I guess, comes from both working with students from across the globe, on both sides of the pond and also on other continents, and also working with educators defined in so many different ways who are looking to up their understanding of the critical literacy piece, the metacognitive skills. And the final bit is that articulation, that understanding and evaluation of that relationship between education and technology, which moves me into my final element, I guess, of the work I'm doing at the moment, which is developing my own EdTech offering. A little bit under my hat because we're just working on various grant and seed funding proposals. But really excited to learn that there's others with those various hats as well here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Emma. And if you don't know myself, I'm Alex Asher. I'm the CEO of LearnCube. We have been around since 2014. I'm based in London normally. I'm in Berlin currently. But we help tutoring companies and language schools. We offer two main products: our virtual classroom software, which we're very well known for, and our online school software, which is more of an end-to-end solution for tutoring companies and language schools. And how that fits into international languages is we have hundreds of customers all over the globe, and we have that exposure to lots of what's going on. So I hope to bring that to the table today. But look at this table of panelists we have. We have everything from general math tutoring to helping teens and people getting into universities. We have automation experts, we have homeschooling experts, plus lots of ranges in tutoring, and also metacognitive experts. So it's all here for you today. And that's what we're going to be talking about, is the future and particularly the biggest challenges of tutoring in 2022 and how we overcome them. So I think we can start off with that as the kind of key line, which is what are the biggest challenges of today? And maybe the best way to start off that is to get a sense of change. Over the last 2 years, we've of course had COVID-19 have a huge impact on the tutoring establishment. If we're really looking at the UK, we've seen not only has it massively accelerated movements towards online learning because that's been forced upon us and has become more of a norm. There's also been massive explosions in funding, not just from the government supporting tutoring in the UK, and not just in the UK, and other parts of the globe too. But there's also been huge interest in ed tech, which means lots of funding. That lots of funding is getting put into various technologies and different ways of doing things. Plus the general population has battled over the last couple of years to keep up with their education with it being so disrupted. So tutoring again has really found its place. So that as just some of the context, and even in the global sphere, we've got geopolitical stuff that's happening, all sorts of movement going on. But let's have a think about what has changed the most over the last 2 years. And I'm going to pick up with our panelists in various occasions. And I'm going to start with Sid, because I know you've got a really great story of really understanding what was tutoring like before COVID-19, the last 2 years with your UK virtual school, and I guess a future look at what the challenges are for tutors. So maybe could you set us off with that background of what's changed over the last 2 years?
I don't know which funding you're talking about, Alex, because I want to grab some of that. We've had no funding at UK Virtual School.
No, not the NTP is what I was talking about. That old $1 billion somewhere.
I know. I've not seen any of that. But I think for us, because I was completely face-to-face prior to COVID, I ran a STEM company and we did science shows and workshops. And then when COVID hit, it had to all change. And so it was literally overnight, suddenly not being able to do what you normally do. And I think a lot of tutors also face that, where online wasn't really a valid option. Like, people knew about it, but people didn't take it seriously. And I was one of those. I thought online teaching just didn't work. And it was because I didn't give it a good go. And I thought, you can't possibly be teaching online. It has to be face-to-face. It has to be hands-on. It has to be, you can't sense what the kid is thinking. You can't see their work. So I was one of those people as well. And I think the first couple of months, like, UK Virtual School didn't start straight away. It came after evolving, me as personally as well, really realizing what technology is capable of doing. And I think for a lot of tutors and educators, it was a process and it wasn't just an overnight thing. But for the first couple of months, I tried YouTube, I tried playing around with Facebook Lives and trying out different things, and actually realizing that kids could engage differently, but they still could engage. They could put stuff into comments, they could use reaction buttons, they could actually vocalize as well if we were doing a Zoom call. So it was a learning process, and I think for a lot of people it has been that process before, when they were all completely face to face, and suddenly all of that's changed. We're locked up in our houses. How do we connect with people? So it was a process. And then the idea of UK Virtual School actually came from people contacting me and saying, we're not getting any live teaching. A lot of schools at that point were just sending out worksheets. They hadn't set up themselves to be online. And a lot of parents were worried that their kids were going to fall behind, or even just lose interest in learning and just have huge gaps. So the idea came from a need. And I tested out on a mini scale some classes with a certain structure in mind. We took feedback, and then UK Virtual School started in July 2020. I feel like I've forgotten my years now. 2020. We started in July 2020.
Excellent.
So that's pre-journey.
I love it. And I think so. That, I think, really sets the tone of what's changed. I would also touch on this with Adolfo. You've also come from a background of a lot of in-person. Is that right, Adolfo?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
And then you've made that change. So what were the challenges? Maybe I'm sort of starting to help transition into what the next year looks like. But what have been the biggest challenges from the last 2 years? And then we've got a reference point for maybe the challenges ahead.
Well, in the beginning, I think the challenge was to get students and parents open to online tutoring. They were used to going on site. We did lose a lot of customers in the transition from one day to the next. We lost 70% of the business.
Wow.
And as we transitioned to online, which we were forced to do. We had already a little bit of experience, so it didn't took us totally off guard. But one of the things that we did find that it's very hard to do online is that the use of manipulatives, which is, it's essential for math learning. We believe in developing skills, not just helping the student for the immediate needs. So we always used manipulatives and had the students try to discover the concepts by themselves, and we would guide them. And doing so online is, of course, it's very different. Of course, there are a lot of resources out there that simulate manipulatives, but it's not the same thing as actually touching it.
Adolfo, can you just help those of us that may not be just so we've got a clear idea of what manipulatives mean to you?
Well, basically, the use of, I don't know if you are familiar with Cuisinart rods, for example, or with algebra tiles.
Okay.
So manipulatives that we use are basically those that students can touch.
Yeah, it's a real tactile feel to them.
Have a feel to them, and discover the solutions and the way to solve anything by themselves with the guidance of one of our tutors.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that we discovered. The other thing was the actual use of technology. We learned that although this generation is very up to pace with technology, we did have a lot of problem with technology. We still do, in the sense of sometimes the students use either an obsolete
using I know all about this, Adolfo. So yeah, you've got internet connectivity issues, you've got mobile devices that might be low powered, you've got a raft of things that you don't even know is going to turn up before you even get to the class, right? Like there's a lot of additional things that you may not be aware of when you actually get into the class, and you might have less control over that. Any other things that jump to mind, Adolfo, that make it quite a lottery sometimes?
Engagement, student engagement. Yes.
Okay.
Having the student face to face is one thing, and you can with the body movement and the body gestures, you can read what's going on within the student. A little bit harder to do that online. So if a student,
there's new skills and new techniques, aren't there?
Right. And of course, students also have the ability to multitask. And as we are talking, maybe they are looking at other screens and we don't even see what they're looking at. And so holding on to their engagement is has been a challenge. And I suppose also marketing has been a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. Marketing, getting more students is the name of the game.
Right.
So there's some really great themes out of here that we've got. So the last 2 years in particular, what's been the challenges? First of all, this just forced upon and massive process that's happened over the last 2 years of getting people from online, maybe I'll do a little bit of that, to this is necessary, to now where we're at right now, which is it's not required anymore, but a lot of people like it. Some people want to keep some of it, use other bits of it. So we've got this aspect of learning that's been over the last 2 years. Sounds like, we've had a lot of us, particularly those that have physical businesses, lose a lot of their customers. And so the biggest challenges have been rebuilding those businesses in a new way, engagement, and then also marketing. So we've got some interesting, and I don't think all of those problems have been solved. So 2022 is likely to have many of the similar challenges, but maybe with some extra on top. I was going to go to you, Emma, just starting off at a point of the how we learn and why we learn aspects. What are likely to be the challenges for 2022? Like we've already gone through a lot of learning, how to learn online over the last 2 years. What are the likely challenges that remain and are likely to be with us in this year ahead?
That's a great question. So I guess it's that mass of content, and to speak perhaps on a bit of a meta level, it's being able to sift through and critically evaluate the tools which are useful for teaching and learning.
Yeah.
The tools which are, say, more digital chaff, as it were. So that's one of the focuses, actually, the last CPD program I was working on, digital teaching and learning, was to bring in frameworks to look at all of the mushrooming edtech offerings, as well as the tools that are used in, I guess, parallel sectors such as podcasting, for example. Descript I found hugely useful to model as a tool that can be really valuable in terms of learning. So that challenge, I guess, is sifting through all of those offerings now, and just the screen fatigue that will still accompany us as we're shifting in different geographies to hybrid teaching and learning, but so many pulls on our time, because I suppose for a while we got very used to being able to hop very quickly at 1:59 to a 2 p.m. call without that factored in time for travel and doing a star jump or standing up from a desk, I say, as I'm shifting in my own seat. So I think that will continue. And to pick up on what's already been discussed is that bandwidth immediacy issue. So there's I'll drop the link in if it'll be of interest. So this a matrix of the bandwidth immediacy and where it's good to be in terms of your planning, your teaching, especially for those who've got connectivity issues, or with the cohorts I've been working with, electricity dropouts, the very expensive data plans, and where is that, finding that sweet spot of having engagement, as has already been highlighted, and bringing real value in that synchronous teaching and learning space. But I also, if I may, shift us away from the challenges to the opportunities to turn it on its head. So actually, I guess I'm a little bit unusual in the grouping in that I don't want to say the pandemic has been good, because it definitely hasn't. But the silver lining, or the tin lining, shall we say, for me, is that all of my work has always been online, predominantly online, actually. So Zoom was something I was trying to encourage people to come onto a few years back, and not that I ever thought that I'd be spending most of my days on it. But the challenges that have come, I think, have been wrapped up as well in a huge opportunity, a readiness and an awareness that these are tools, ways of teaching and learning that we all need to embrace, or we can embrace, and there's real value in them. That's not to say that this format would replace us all getting into a room and seeing one another in 3D. But certainly what I found in that this work on the how we learn has really made people sit up and think, because as soon as you've shifted your teaching and learning to this format, it has to be very, very carefully managed on each activity with your learning outcomes. There's I guess a requirement to really nail down the reasons, the whys and the hows of what you're doing. So that's, I think, been really interesting.
Yeah, by the way, if you're listening in here and you're feeling like, oh, they're only focusing on the negative stuff, don't worry, we're going to get into what is 22 is looking, and it's definitely, there's a bright future ahead of us. But I do think it's quite a useful conversation to have, to understand what the challenges will likely to be, because once we kind of know what's ahead, then it gives us an opportunity to face those head on. And one of the things I'm particularly interested in is, COVID still hasn't gone away. We've still got a lot of hesitancy in travel, and even going to places in person. Julia, you might be a good person to bring up at this moment, because you've got probably exactly, being in Russia, you've probably got more than a couple of things to think on. You've got not only geopolitical stuff that might be having an impact on the world this year, but you also have the COVID factor of people maybe in Russia wanting to come to the UK. How do they feel about that? Is this challenge that we've really had for sure over the last 2 years? Do you feel that we're still likely to have the same level of challenge this year, or is that likely to change in your view?
I think it's changing to the positive. For us, like with Emma, I think there was lots of positive coming out from online tutoring. We were using Zoom or Skype even and other platforms for online tutoring before, but families were quite hesitant anywhere, particularly here in London, but especially abroad. They were like thinking of, okay, we have our own tutor, can you train them? And we would, try and do it that way, but then it's so difficult to actually take responsibility of what is being taught and prepare them to the curriculum that they are not particularly, being here based in London and working with tutors abroad. So that wasn't that successful. And of course now people were much more keen to actually do tutoring online. And the challenge, one of the biggest challenges at the beginning was with schools that were online and then having extra tutoring online, so that parents didn't really want that, and we wouldn't encourage that, especially with younger children. But then there were lots of schools that we worked with, or children that went to those schools in Russia, Ukraine, Dubai, Cyprus, that didn't have online streaming, only had maybe 2-3 lessons live during the day, and then they would want private tutors to go through worksheets or through whatever work that is sent to school. And like, don't forget, with international parents, a lot of them, a lot of children actually go to English schools, but parents might not be necessarily fluent in English. So imagine how you struggled maybe with your children doing your work and children doing online schooling, but imagine doing that in French or German for your children. So it's like, it was so challenging. So they were very keen to have tutors doing children's work with them online. So that was the positive. And of course, like we tried to vary it a little bit. We did some fun activities, we did social meetings, book clubs and things, especially when it was like complete lockdown. And at the beginning there was, it was kind of like, we don't work with a huge number of families anyways, but we never kind of had a huge drop in terms of families moving to the UK. But it was funny at the beginning, there were lots of inquiries because the schools in CIS countries, I think, were not coping with online tutoring at all. Private or state, it was mainly worksheets approach. So lots of parents were keen on actually sending, after the first lockdown in summer, sending their children boarding maybe, or moving as a country. And also then medical, everybody started thinking about where is it best to be in terms of medicine and stuff. So people who could afford it, they were considering actually moving as a family as well. The challenges that we faced was with the local tutors, who we didn't have many of those, but still we had some who would go to, in central London, for example, they would go to families and actually teach live, especially for 11 plus preparation, for example. Now tutors do not want to do that, and I understand completely why they don't want to do that, obviously, but a lot of parents are still keen on doing it. So that's one of the challenges. So, but I guess the people who actually do that is part-time tutors who are full-time teachers, let's say. So that's how we kind of tackled it.
I think that's a really interesting point. I would say that one of the biggest challenges we've heard from our tutoring businesses is the fact that there is a bit of a gap, feeling like it's actually emerging bigger and bigger. I don't know if you agree with this here, but tutors themselves only see a lot of benefits in tutoring. Not only, but a lot of people, particularly also in North America, the tutors don't want to go in person anymore. They get paid either the same or effectively less because they have all of the costs of travel. Then they go to the house, which they also need to get there on time or early to make sure that they don't have a problem. Then they have to kind of deal with the family, which some people would love that. But a lot of tutors are saying, hey, you know what? I much prefer this online gig.
Yeah,
but then the parents are wanting that in person because there's a different dynamic there, and for a parent it could be interesting. What are your thoughts on this, Julia?
No, we noticed that with the younger children, like that's absolutely fine with online lessons for all children, but with the younger ones, it's very they're still quite reluctant, which is very understandable. So up to the age of 10, I think like that is the main kind of demand for live lessons. And then anything older than that. But of course, for tutors, I completely understand them. And like we, as much as we can, we would be always trying to convince the families to do online lessons if it's workable for the child. because from tutors' point of view, I wouldn't be going myself,
Yeah.
to be honest. And also the risk of, catching COVID on the way or
Yeah.
spreading it from family to family.
Oh,
I don't know if that will
issues.
change, but definitely, I think online is online tutoring is a brighter world right now, and it definitely works so well for international families.
Yeah.
Because even the ones who are not moving to the UK, but just in English curriculum or even in Russian-speaking schools, they now they have nothing. They understand the benefits of online tutoring, and they're very happy to hire some native speakers online, and with the amazing platform and technology that can be used now. And another thing, like the notes, simple things like saving notes, right?
Yeah.
Saved automatically. If
Yeah.
you have it in one file, the child cannot say I couldn't find them. Homework is sent over email.
Exactly.
Little things that make a big picture look better, I think.
Let's definitely put a pin in those, because I think there's got to be a part of this conversation, which is like, what are the benefits of technology and how are we utilizing those, rather than also how is this, is it online or in person? Because they are different beasts in a way, and can be dealt with differently. I'm going to move on from this kind of conversation. I think we can kind of delve into a little bit more of the idea of challenges. I'm just aware of timing. Ludo, how are we we're happy to keep on going, or should we have a mini break for a moment and then come back and talk about the next section?
It depends. If you think that it's a good time to move on to the next section, we could take a little 5-minute pause just there.
Yeah, well, I think we should, just mainly because we're at 40 minutes. If we all have a break, then we're at 45, and then we've only got 45 left for the end of the session today.
Well, okay. Well, a little 5-minute break then to rest and recharge, and we'll come back after that for topic 2.
And if you don't want to take a break, pop some stuff in the chat. This is a great community. I'm so impressed with Love Tutoring, and it's all about the community. So feel free to turn your video off, go and grab something. But if you also want to chat, and you're welcome to, and also us as panelists, we'll try our best to have a look at some of the questions that might be there as well. Thanks very much. Hey everyone, Ludo, I reckon we get this party started again. While everyone's coming back, please put in the chat some of the questions you might have for our panel today. We've been talking, I mean, on one side, we're going to be talking, of course, about the challenges ahead, but in this particular section, we're also going to be looking towards the future and obviously a lot of reasons to be cheerful and optimistic. So pop in the chat anything you have. Just before we get started, panel, I think it's a good idea. Sid's already kicked us off. If you want to put in the chat, maybe some way of people getting to know you or learn more about you or get in contact, just pop that in the chat. Again, we'll probably start in the next minute or so. All right, let's get started. So in the last section, we were talking about the challenges facing the tutoring industry and tutoring sector. What we talked about was particularly the process that was very, very acute in 2020 of moving online, of dealing with a very different world of people not being able to move as fluidly and easily as they used to. And we had, a big training and a big kind of learning curve for us as potentially tutors and managers of tutoring businesses. And obviously it was a huge challenge for our learners. And 2 years into it, I think many of us feel a lot more confident on some of those sorts of challenges. But remaining, how do we improve engagement? How do we grow our businesses with marketing? How do we figure out a new way forward with tutoring, and how do we manage that inflection between online and offline? Is it a both? Is it either? Do we choose? And how do we make these decisions? So with those challenges in our rearview mirror, and some of them still in the front of the car that we're racing towards, we've got 2022, and there are lots of reasons to be optimistic. And we've got a different future that we're looking forward. So I'm going to ask Kirill to help us understand, what can we be excited about with 2022? Maybe what's changed that gives us a chance to be excited about this year?
Well, I think the massive shift from offline to online brought some interesting opportunities. So, for example, our robot tutors, they were not a match against human tutors before pandemic. because I mean, we can't build physical robots. It's too expensive. But building human likeness on screen, it's relatively easy peasy.
And what are the benefits of this automation? Like, what are the tangible benefits for, let's start with learners. I mean, they're the most important. How can we help more people?
Yeah, but the most obvious benefit is affordability. Because
did you say affordability?
Yeah, affordability,
Yes.
because tutors are expensive. It's like from 30 to 90 quid in the UK, and say up to $300 in New York.
Yeah.
So it's just that makes the world of learning not terribly equal. So the more functions of humans we automate, the more affordable tuition would be.
Yeah.
And also, we'll take the machines will take the most mundane tasks from people, so that tutors will be free to create something, create new bits of theory, perhaps new writing new problems, and even automating themselves, so that they could be true creators.
This sounds great. I mean, Kirill, this idea of digital twins and sort of, a digital kind of assistant helping a tutor is definitely something that's been talked about for a long time. One of the things I am curious though is like, where are we actually at in terms of what can automation currently do for tutors and students right now? Not in 5 years. This time I'm actually asking, where are we at in 2022?
Yeah, so we already have the best content online, but as just taken as a standalone, it doesn't help. So that's how our startup started. So we started as a grassroots project in North London for kids who were deprived classes. So we thought if we aggregate and curate content that is available online for free, we'd fix the problem. No, we failed miserably because kids, they just couldn't study by themselves.
Yeah,
without someone with a baseball bat standing behind them. just kidding. And we understood that we must appeal to primordial instincts, and this is probably Emma must know better about cognitive behavior than me. But we must appeal to primordial instincts, Pavlovian reflexes, at least when it comes to test prep. Not necessarily the whole tuition, but test prep. So concentration and mental focus means probably sometimes a bit more than brain are important. And we try to appeal to those things. But that requires a lot of work, because just to appeal to the same instincts that attract people to gambling, for example, or to social networks, which is kind of similar, which is uncertainty of outcome. And again, probably Emma would know better, but we call it uncertainty of outcome. That gives you a buzz, whether you're at a roulette table in Vegas or in Monaco, or you're looking for the next problem on your maths test.
Kirill, one of the things I'm curious about though is we've had apps for a long time that have done self-study for a long time. Like, even if they're not AI driven or machine driven, they've, a lot of them aesthetically look brilliant. Gamification, that doesn't seem to be an issue, but yet we still have issues with education. A lot of people are still battling, and we still have a real need for tutors, and a lot of people have a real need for human tutors. So what has changed in the last 2 years from a technology, maybe an infrastructure, rather than necessarily what you're doing in particular, but what's changed in infrastructure perspective in the last 2 years that makes 2022 a different year?
I would say two things. A, certain things like infinite question banks, for example, they had never been around before that. So that's one thing that gives them a buzz. And secondly, interestingly, that's and I'm alluding to the international aspect, not tutor-student relationship, but peer relationship. So for example, our students, they have peers which have kind of unusual, these Silicon Valley types who play the same tests with them, like deathmatch, like a game, and that puts them on fire. I mean, the kids, 16-year-old kids, that they know if they do well, they will be noticed in Silicon Valley. So it's peer relationships, peer-to-peer, becoming international. and sometimes even it goes beyond the particular age.
Yeah. So maybe one thing that we're looking forward to, we can be optimistic about technology having some sort of help in 2022, is we do have bigger data sets. We have more availability of content. We have improvement of tools. Some of those tools and automation can help tutors do more and impact more lives at maybe a lower cost. We also have opportunities for, particularly when it comes to practice, where students can be real beneficiaries of some of the technology. Emma, I'm kind of curious as well. If we took one side kind of automation, hey, this is this thing I've automated. Is there anything that you're seeing of the augmentation side that, where technology is helping beyond, I'm very familiar with sort of how technology can help with running a tutoring business, but particularly on the learning side of things. So anything you've got there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And as our discussions have been going on, it gets me thinking about that SAMR model, which you're referencing. I'll find a link and whack it in the chat about
Excellent.
What role that technology is doing. Is it substituting? Is it modifying? And at what level, shall we say, is the technology acting? So I think in terms of what are the possibilities out there, what I'm currently looking at, which I'm really interested in, is subject agnostic tools which help with that metacognitive awareness and leverage some of the existing technological abilities of conversational assistants, for example. Now, it wouldn't be letting the cat out the bag if you looked at Ada, which is a superb digital assistant that's developed by Bolton College. And that's really, I think, one of the real markers of what technology can do, which isn't replacing the tutor with that nuanced conversation and that to and fro that inevitably unravels and takes place when you're working with a student. But is that guide on the side that can be there, so-called on-demand, personalized and accessible, because let's be honest, a lot of communities simply don't have the means to access tutoring or different levels of tutors. So I think it's a really, really tough nut to crack. It's one I'm going to have a go at this year, but it is on the horizon. So I'd love to say 2022 will see the glimmers, the first offerings of such things. But I think, we're at a really interesting moment. People are willing to engage. There's more funding pots. There's more risk being taken by different funding ventures, whether they're charity focused or the venture capitalist side of things. And we've also got an opportunity to shift that EdTech chapter, that direction of travel, I guess, away from content fact regurgitation to deeper learning and empowerment, to give students the ability to transfer that knowledge of how to learn to different contexts.
Yeah, I think one of the things we're even seeing with LearnCube is some of the pie in the sky ideas we had for our virtual classroom. It's more a problem of capacity and being able to deliver on those, rather than, that's a technology we would have to come up from scratch. That would be very, very difficult. So for us in 2022, there's just a lot more tools and a lot more infrastructure to help. So I think that is one thing that's changed. But I'm also going to ask the people in the chat, what are some of the things you would want to have automated for you? What is the augmentation that you'd love to see in 2022 and the years beyond? Because I think there are some things that we would love to pass on to a robot, but there are other things that we're very near and dear to our hearts, like the communication aspect and the mentoring aspect that gives us a lot of sense of pride. But definitely pop in the chat if you've got any ideas on that. I'm going to pop a question to Adolfo. What are some of the things that, particularly having mainly gone from offline to online, what are you, now that you're kind of a bit more set up and looking towards the future, what are you optimistic about with this year, 2022?
I would say reach. Of course, one of the limitations of on-site is you're limited to a physical geographical area. so we are optimistic about reaching more students in the whole country, in other countries. I would also say there are, as it has been mentioned here, a lot of online tools that make teaching more effective. We've lost some of the concrete aspect, but we've gained other things.
Yeah.
So so I think it's more of trying to find those the benefit of what we've gained and how we can replace what we have lost. So yeah, that's
I like that. I think one of the things that we could all be quite excited by is I know how, and I know vividly how a lot of people that came to us were really feeling a loss and a sense of, I don't want to go online and you're forcing me to do something I don't want to do. And I think 2022, the challenge is, how do we level up? How do we actually, and not just try and do things exactly like we were doing them in person, but we do them actually differently online. Sid, do you have any kind of examples of that where if you were doing it in person, you would just do it a different way, but online, you're just fundamentally changing the way that you deliver that tutoring, particularly to a group, because again, you've got some new tools online that you wouldn't have if you were in a classroom, but then you don't have the presence, which I feel is a huge thing that, quite honestly, we do lose in a group class. If you're one person and you're present with 15 other people, it's much easier to control a class, whereas 15 screens in 15 other parts of the world, it's a different story without some really good understanding and tools. What have you changed and what are you excited by with an online format?
I think online offers a lot more flexibility for the kids and for their particular needs. So for example, if you've got a kid that doesn't want to raise their hand and be put on the spot, which is what happens in a classroom, the only way that they can communicate an answer is if they raise their hand. Yeah. And then everyone is looking at them. And that's the only way that they can participate in a class. While in an online world, they can do that. They can raise their hand physically and verbally answer, or they can put something in a comment section to everyone, or even if they don't want any of the other kids to know what they're doing, they can put it privately in chat. And I think having that flexibility allows the kids to take part and engage more so than what they would if they were doing face-to-face. So because I work with a lot of SEN kids and kids with needs.
So we've turned off the wrong person here. Sid, it's been turned off. I'm going to unmute you, please.
I don't know where I was muted. At what point? I don't know.
You said something amazing. It was phenomenal. I'm so sorry everyone missed that, but don't worry. You're going to try and do a repeat, but it's going to be a testament to what you said.
So I think I was saying that I work a lot with SEN kids, and with that comes their own way of working and what they feel comfortable with. And I think online has the ability to allow all of those options to coexist, while it's so much harder in person. You can't give someone a one-to-one attention, but you can online because you can privately message them. And there's more flexibility. If someone's feeling overwhelmed, they can close their camera on a temporary basis. They can easily leave the room. They don't have to ask permission to use the toilet. They just pop out, that they're just popping out for a little while, and that's fine. And they're safe. They're in an environment that they feel safe in. And when a kid feels safe and that need is met, then they're open to learning. If they're feeling unsafe in an environment, they're not going to be even in a position to start learning. And I think that's what's really important. So I think online offers a lot more than what we realize when we first kind of look at it. We're like, actually, we're not going to be able to feel their energy. We're not going to be able to see what they're doing. And actually, they are really engaged. We have no issues with engagement because they opt into what kind of engagement they want to do. So if they opt in for an interactive class, then their cameras have to be switched on. Like, that is part of the deal that they're signing up to. If they're doing a webinar, that's fine, but then they won't have that interaction element. And some kids are very independent and they're okay with that. So there's a lot more options, I think, with online, definitely.
And that I love that because it's got so many parts to be optimistic about. The fact that we're able to now help kids that, as you say, would have been at the back of the class, shy, unwilling or unable to feel like they're engaging, and basically waiting for the opportunity when they can get out of school and figure out their own way, and they don't have to wait anymore, which is pretty exciting. I'm gonna also, what can we ask from you, Kirill, as well? What other aspects of doing things completely differently could we expect in 2022?
Maybe not 22, maybe 23. That would be metaverse, which comes very, very handy. Because, for example, a very important thing for tutoring is to make it cohort-based in some way. It could be groups, but if it's individual, what would you do just to make it cohort-based? And cohort-based is very, very good. It's what we do, what we were doing before metaverse was just leaderboards. And leaderboards are fine. They give you some sense of community and achievement, but they're just a stupid Excel file. But with metaverse, all kids who are learning something, and maybe even learning asynchronously, they could be synchronously present in the metaverse at the same time. That gives you some sort of semi-cohort studying, and that helps.
So there's something to be optimistic about, almost the communities that we might be able to build
online
that we weren't able to build. I mean, I know it myself. I mean, 2020 and 2021, the ability to build communities that were safe, vibrant, positive, it was hard. And it's, to be honest, that's still a real challenge for online communities that we're seeing in anything that you don't have to put a login in. Even when you do have to log in, there's some exposure there that can be quite negative if it's left alone. But I'm going to switch the question a little bit about even in person. Julia, you probably have a lot of a really kind of time to this, and maybe we could hear, what are you optimistic about with the tutoring market in the UK, but also maybe if you've got any exposure to what tutoring looks like in Russia. Do you have any kind of ideas on that?
So I never lived in Russia. I'm from Ukraine originally.
Sorry, with your Russian customers, it might not be relevant, sorry.
No, what I'm trying to say, either in Russia or Ukraine, I am not that aware of the tutoring kind of market, because, as I said, we tried working with them in terms of helping, but it didn't work out. What we're going into more now is helping schools set up English curriculum or British curriculum with the help of our tutors or subject specialists, etc. And
so in the UK, what would you be optimistic about for this year?
Well, yeah, I think online tutoring will really be rising, and with the new technology coming up, I think it just keeps on giving us more opportunities. Whether it would be nice to have some kind of a hybrid approach, as I said, especially with the younger children. But with the new technology trying to make it cheaper and still of a very good quality, and maybe bringing some social aspect in it as well, either through virtual schools or even just classes where there could be societies and like with the guidance of a teacher, but in a group where children can actually interact maybe more. And it's all good about like being having that opportunity about switching on off the camera and things, but maybe I'm a bit old school, but I think it really we really risk of like switching the child when they switch the camera off, like losing their attention on not then jumping in on time and stuff. So I think the motivation should be maybe targeted not just through the teaching, but through actually peers as well, right? So when they are placed in small groups, and I'm a big fan of peer teaching and with the guidance, with the facilitator or the tutor, with the 3 up to 5 maybe children, or even 1 teacher and 2 tutors, where there is a little bit of a competition, not in terms of marks and testing, but just like what you bring as a pupil to the table. And we had something set up over, it started with a lockdown, which was a book club. And it was really social, it was still obviously learning English for international students, but that went so well because they could all, it was like, a little group in the library. Somebody had their cat, it was much more relaxed, but they were all speaking English and still learning and socializing. So hopefully it will go a little bit that way as well with technology and other things we discussed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really optimistic on the snowball effect of both. I mean, tutors are phenomenally creative anyway. I think the first year for a lot of people, it's like, how do I do the basics? How do I even just make sure that the video is on? And I feel like we've now kind of got overall, we've got a pretty good base for a lot of tutors. And I think there's this whole like leveling up and really utilizing some of the technology in the right ways rather than as a distraction. So I'm very optimistic on that.
Yeah, just one more thing. I think it would be really good to see collaboration from schools with tutors, because it's really like frowned upon, or like a lot of schools have this approach that, oh, we do enough work, or we're against tutoring, but like, you know, the idea in ideal world, yes, but really it's not the reality, right? And some kids need extra help, some don't. I'm really against having a tutor for just homework, obviously, unless like there's a special case. But like there could be this targeted short periods of tutoring, and if we could have more collaboration with schools, and I can tell you, we can see a huge difference between schools that collaborate with our tutors and exchange you know, some insights from the classroom with them, and those who kind of deny that the child needs any help. At the end of the day, the child is at the center of all of it, right? And we want to benefit them. So that would be great if this kind of reputation of tutors being friends of schools.
I mean, certainly I've been seeing that from, at least, again, sorry, Sid, about the NTP, but from my understanding of the NTP, there is a lot more collaboration than there ever was between tutors and schools. Am I right on that?
Pandemic helped with that as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons that we can assume that if we can kind of break down that major obstacle, could we create a more streamlined, synchronous experience between somebody in school and then getting experience and some opportunities outside, or even in Sid's case, you know, having that entire experience made for them, but in their own online world in a way. Well, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to look at the future. We've kind of been dabbling around in the kind of near future with 2022. Is there anything else any of our panelists want to raise before we get into the slightly beyond 2022? Because again, we've got to prepare for what the future is bringing. If not, that's cool. I'll keep us moving then forward on what we're going to be looking ahead, and maybe some fun sort of crazy predictions. And while we're having this, if you're in the chat, could we ask you to put in any last questions that you may have for us? And we're going to try and reserve some time at the end of this to be able to answer those questions. And I'll make sure that we attend those probably. We've got about 20 minutes left, and then we'll answer those in sort of 10 minutes time. So let's start with, I'm going to be asking the panelists to be very short if they can, with what is their number one prediction of their biggest challenge, and then also the biggest opportunity perhaps. So craziest prediction if you can, or just something that you feel is very relevant to the next 2 to 3 years. So one challenge, one opportunity. Any hands up that's got it first? Okay, Emma, we're going to start with you and we'll go around from there.
Super, thanks, Alex. I hope this isn't cheating, but I'm going to roll it as an opportunity and challenge.
Yay!
And we'll see how we go. So I was thinking this morning, what, you know, this crazy prediction, but maybe something that doesn't often get thought about, but is small states and developing, well, the global South, leapfrogging what the global North has been doing, and especially where a lot of the tutoring world has been mushrooming in the UK, of course, you know, is a big industry. But I guess it's really important for all of us to keep our sights on what is happening. For example, come across huge centres of excellence in small Pacific islands, in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago. Love to fly a flag for them because the educator community there is superb and has very ambitious plans for the future. So I guess it's important to keep our eyes very open geographically and see what is happening. They might leapfrog us, suggests an element of competition, but how can we learn from other geographies using mediums such as this, which allow us to connect quickly, efficiently, and easily, low cost, environmental cost, financial cost, learning and getting that symbiosis in place. There's learning that we can share, but oh my goodness, isn't there a lot of learning from these other places of excellence?
Amazing. So we're going to see leapfrogging of people. When you say the global south, is this, and I might be using the wrong terminology, but what some of us might call sort of a developing countries that,
sure.
And moving and basically leapfrogging using the newest technology and finding new opportunities. It sounds pretty cool to me.
Right.
Excellent. Any hands up for the next? Sid, fantastic. Tell us all.
So I think there's going to be a big shift away from mass education, as in being able to deliver to lots of kids at the same time in one sort of way. And people are going to move more towards individual learning, because they're going to, I think COVID has made people realize that actually when kids are given more individual work, that they thrive in that. So I think we're going to see big shift in home education. The government's going to change their policies to monitor that a little bit more closely. And the opportunities that come from that as educators in business, I think there's going to be huge amounts of opportunity for group and social learning, because home education, they still want social learning to happen. They want things to happen in groups, but they want their kids to be catered for in smaller groups and as individuals, rather than being treated as like year 4. They're like a group of class. So I think there's going to be a big shift that way. So there's huge opportunities that come from all the challenges I think that we're going to have over the years.
Fantastic. Definitely agree with that. And also this concept of more peer-to-peer learning, providing safe spaces for students led by themselves. And the way that, it seems so old-fashioned, but, pen pals and all of that was like the way to get to know somebody on the other side of the world. And there are going to be facilities that are open to anyone, whether they're in a general school or even in homeschooling or in tutoring, where they can literally, in a safe way, meet somebody on totally different part of the world with a different culture and maybe learn something together without that being like, oh, well, this isn't part of the curriculum, so why would I bother? Instead of be like, oh my God, let's explore this thing that we're both excited about.
Just to add to that, Alex, because we're doing worldviews. We started that in September, and worldviews is basically a subject where they look at a different country each month. So September they were looking at South Africa, but from South Africans' perspective. So they looked at the culture, the traditions, and the older kids looked at the politics. And we have done our first pen pal club. We did Greece last year, at the end of last year, November, and they've got pen pals in Greece now, and
so
that they
cool.
can learn about the culture. So yeah, we're hoping to expand on that. But it's brilliant that the kids are able to do that. It's not part of the curriculum, but it's a great addition to their learning. And I think things like that. And just going back to what I did pre-COVID, I did workshops with 5 to 14 in the same class. And that kind of collaborative approach, I think, is going to be a lot more of what we're going to see in the future, because the kids learn from each other. And there's nothing more than learning from that. Yeah, I think it's great to see more of that.
I just think about how excited that is. I mean, when I think about, I'm from New Zealand, I have the good fortune of now living in London. But, when I was growing up, I mean, I was, again, fortunate that I had some exposure to people from different countries, but the majority of people grew up not knowing anyone that was from a different background to them. And we're going to have a future now, not just in 5 years, but it's only going to get better in terms of facilitation, where we're going to, anyone from any part of the globe, and we're seeing this already with partnerships with schools, people are starting to trust students to actually meet in a one-to-one basis, which I think is much easier to build a relationship than I've seen classes where you've got the whole class looking at another whole class and no one knows what to say. So there's some really exciting things there for world peace too. Kirill, let's go on to you. What's your craziest prediction?
I would second Sid's idea of personalization and the individualization of learning, but I would go a bit further ahead. So it often means homeschooling, and homeschooling means loss of earnings for one of the parents because they need to stay at home. And what could be done is some startups in the United States where homeschooling is a big thing now, unlike in this country, it's like 11% of kids are now doing homeschooling. It's a massive, massive number, and then it's growing. So what they do is they rent some space sometimes even abandoned warehouse or something like that, or a retail store. They put kids there, put a warden, not a teacher, because teachers and tutors are expensive. They put a warden, and kids, they do their own things online with their online tutors or with their online robots, their own apps, whatever. So what is parents don't need to lose earnings, both can work, which is in America is essential, and B, kids socialize with each other, which is very hard when they're homeschooled. So this I would agree with personalization and individualization, but just going a bit further. So that's socializing and probably even peer learning in just another way, not like it used to be in the school.
Yeah, makes sense. Carol, we're going to move to Julia.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges would probably be, because it's like all good to teach the actual knowledge, right, online, but soft skills, analytical skills, and like this concept of taking ownership of your own learning when you just have a schedule of lessons run, like what do you, the drive from children, the initiative from them to, okay, I am going to decide what I want to learn at a certain age, obviously. And that's again where little groups help, because they get ideas from each other. But with the knowledge and like the world developing, and we have all of it in our phone, we don't need to remember the periodic table anymore, right? It's just with the click of the button, you can get it. So the same with handwriting and things like that, the traditional kind of skills that were taught in school. So I think a lot more attention should be given to soft skills and actual real life, in terms of how to work in a team in university, because what we face with our children as well, that in the UK, not only they come from a different culture, they adapt to schools, boarding schools or whatever schools they are, and then they go to universities, and the gap is so huge that they don't necessarily have the necessary skills. I don't think schools maybe prepare them enough. And with online tutoring or learning, I think it will be even a bigger challenge. So trying to, there's lots of positives about online teaching, but also trying to kind of not forget about the challenges.
Makes sense. I really love that point on soft skills. And I just think even just this experience we're all having right now, and if you think about what peer-to-peer learning looks like, doesn't that look a lot more like what the future of work looks like as well, rather than what happens in a classroom? Is the classroom, at least the way I remember it, is that really reflective of how I work now? I'm just kind of curious if people either agree or totally disagree. So pop that in the chat. And Adolfo, we're going to finish with you. What's your crazy predictions on either opportunities or challenges or both?
Well, one thing that we have found is that as tutors, we are trying to develop skills, as Julia mentioned. And parents, yet parents and children, they have one thing that calls them for tutoring, and that's grades. And usually grades don't necessarily mean learning or lack of learning. Yet parents and children are very focused on grades, and now tutors are being even more scrutinized than before, because parents can actually enter the class, and the tutors online tutoring don't actually know that the parent is standing right behind the tutor and scrutinizing the class. And their expectations might be different from the objectives of the tutors. Parents and students may be focused basically on improving grades, whereas tutors might be focused on improving learning. And sometimes learning and grades don't happen immediately. It's one is happens after the other. So I think that that's a challenge, having being more scrutinized, being on the on the window of what's happening. I do agree with Sid that individualized teaching is more effective, and we have seen comments from parents and from children that have told us, well, what I see in a tutoring lesson is more than what I see in school in 1 week. And one of the challenges is to actually be able to take advantage of that and capitalize it, and take learning further than what goes on in schools. We have found that sometimes school teachers see tutoring as a sign of failure on their own teaching, which I know it's not. But sometimes when a student needs mentions tutoring, teachers feel that it's because they weren't able to do it properly, and has nothing to do with that. But it's a big opportunity for tutoring, and especially for online tutoring, because there's more communication. There can be more communication with teachers, with parents, with the students themselves, to create a better teaching experience for the students.
Right. That was I really like that idea of almost, there's a huge opportunity to remove a lot of the stigma attached with tutoring, but also the stigma that you said sort of was felt by the teachers in schools. And again, maybe I'm almost, well, I certainly feel very optimistic that school to tutor relationship will improve over the years to come. But I'm going to just highlight what we've got for our predictions. We've got this individualization of learning. We're seeing the opportunities in homeschooling, the move away from grades, and this focus on exploratory learning and the excitement and opportunities that brings. More peer-to-peer learning and opportunities for people in remote parts of the world to collaborate and learn from each other. We have soft skills that we are wanting to improve, and we can still improve on further, both in person but also online. Lots of opportunities there, and I think we're all maturing with the education system and helping make it better. And then we're removing some of the friction points and the stigmas, on every single level, on the learner, on the tutor, on the teachers, on the parents, and everyone that's associated and stakeholders as part of the tutoring sector. So it's a great point to finish on, which I am. And I'm going to ask Ludo, just in case there are any questions that he wants to bring to the fore, and we'll spend 5 or so minutes trying to answer those and then wrap up, or at least let those that need to head off. Ludo.
Thanks so much, Alex, for directing that, and also to our panelists, Adolfo, Julia, Kirill, Sid, and Emma, for contributing your ideas. I think we've seen a great and really diverse range of opinions there, and covered some pretty key topics for what is due to kind of be approaching us in 2022. Hopefully, panelists, you'll learn from each other to some extent as well, and be able to take that into your own kind of organizations and businesses and networks. And of course, if anyone is wondering, the recording of this session will be made available shortly after this. But yes, as Alex said, we do still have a few minutes to go. So if there are any questions that you'd like to ask any of the panelists here, or even if you'd like to ask Alex anything, you're not impervious to questions, Alex, just because you're chair.
I was hoping to direct on the others, surely. Yeah. No, definitely pop them in this is your last chance. Again, because sometimes it happens so quickly, I'll get Ludo with maybe they're quite fatigued eyes after an entire week of looking at screens. But yeah, this is your last chance to ask some questions, and it's been a total pleasure with the panel. So thank you, panel. And also, panel, please pop in your details for contacting, just in case people want to contact you afterwards. Pop that into the chat and we'll finish up very shortly.
Yeah, I really like that idea of popping in your LinkedIn URL or your email. I think that's exactly what this festival is all about. Helen, if there's any, I hope there's no LinkedIn. I hope there's not 2 LinkedIn profiles in that thumbnail. But yeah, thanks, Kirill. Of course, you can always direct those questions towards our panelists after the festival or after this event has ended.
Excellent. So we're going to give it 30 seconds just while people pop in their last questions, and the panel get a chance just to pop in their details, and then we'll finish up.
Remember, you can always hit the save Zoom chat with the 3 buttons on the right, so you don't have to copy frantically all of those email addresses in. You can save the chat to your laptop if you'd like. But yeah, that's what this is all about, is getting to know other individuals. As Sid said, something, a platform like Clubhouse can do the same. You can come across people that you otherwise may never have online. And I think that's what this event is all about as well.
Cool. So are there any last questions? Otherwise, I think we're going to finish up today. Wow, what a week, Ludo. I almost feel that we shouldn't just finish up the session. Ludo, is Julia there? We should really have an ending, some horns and whistles playing, but this shouldn't be up to me. Maybe first of all, let's get some virtual clapping in the background on the chat. I've been seeing lots of clicking and waving, so it's all good stuff. But Ludo, this has to be you, mate. This is your spot. You and Julia, where are you?
I would just love to see the reaction that you feel after attending some of this week's events. Whether in the chat or on the Zoom reactions at the bottom of your bar, just so we get a sense of what you've learned this week. And if you could put down just one word in the chat that you have felt after watching this week's activities, that would really kind of help us a lot to know what you learnt. So Alex, I wish there was some fanfare, some banner that would unfurl from the ceiling, or some final piece.
I wasn't prepared. We're just going to have to deal with virtual chatter. No, it's going off the chain on the chat.
Yeah.
But maybe we could just with a couple of minutes to go, I'm going to say my thanks, and maybe just if it's just even the panel, or if somebody really wants to say something to Ludo and Julia and the team for putting this on, I'm going to start with my own personal thanks to Ludo, Julia, and the whole team behind the Love Tutoring Festival. What an event. It always inspires me, the communities that are involved, and I just want to say my special thanks to you for organizing. Can I pass the baton over to Adolfo?
Please.
So who's there?
Me, Jack.
Okay, go for it, Jack.
I know Ludo and Julia won't do this themselves, but there is an incredible amount of work that goes into making an event like this happen. You get to see a festival that is slick, hopefully, and well attended, with loads of incredible speakers and lots of interesting people with lots and lots of different perspectives. And that's because Ludo and Julia have been literally working night and day since the end of the last festival to make this happen. So if you could give them a huge show of your appreciation, they will be mortifiably embarrassed, but they will also appreciate it deeply, I'm sure. Yeah.
I think we need to spotlight Ludo, right? Put him on the spot.
Not at all. I think the only way I could end this is by saying that please stay in and amongst the QT sphere. We love meeting new people and chatting about new projects. There is, of course, at the start of our next training cohort starts on Monday, and I wish I could give more concrete details about the next festival, which will be this June. I don't know exactly what it will look like just yet. I know that it will bring people together and have voices from around the world contributing again. But yeah, for now, have a wonderful rest of the day. Have a great weekend.
Before you do, Ludo, I think I think there's some thank yous that I'm sure, Jack, I know Helen, you've also been a part of this. Ludo, do you want to just give the rest of your team also a bit of a cheer so we can send them some love as well?
I'd love to. There's in the back end of our team, when we are kind of working behind the scenes for this festival, there's often messages like, I've had to pop out. Is anyone able to kind of post here or, respond to a question on the community here? And I think having that team behind you, there's been Rachel, Jack, Helen, Sarah Lynn, Sholto, my younger brother as well, has been helping out with this as well. And I think that it's that team behind you that really makes the front end look like this. And I think there is no one better in this world than Jack and Helen at monitoring the chat and keeping people engaged and responding to people. I hope you will have seen that. They're some of the finest in the business. So yeah, that's it's a huge thanks goes out to them. But 3:34. Doesn't look like there's any more kind of questions coming in. So Alex, for one final time, thank you so much for chairing this today. I thought that was a brilliant conversation, and thank you very much to our fantastic panelists. Have a wonderful, wonderful time, everyone, and thank you so much for attending the Love Tutoring Festival too.
Well done.
Thank you
Thanks,
all.
Ludo, and thank you, Julia. Bye now.
Bye, guys.